Welcome to Promote, Profit, Publish. I'm your host, Juliet Clark, and today we have another one of our authors that we're going to interview. Now, a lot of you are thinking like, why do I want to hear the authors on Promote, Profit, Publish? Well, you want to because you never know. You may have been thinking about, is there a book that I've been thinking about writing, but will people listen? Am I passionate enough? So you kind of get a little flavor for what people are writing out there and what's selling. So before we jump into the interview, I want to remind you, go over to our YouTube channel, Superbrand Publishing, subscribe. If you're listening via iTunes or iHeart or one of the podcast apps, you can go over to YouTube and actually see the video of these people talking. Also, remember to go over and take our Promote, Profit, Publish quiz. You can find it at www.promoteprofitpublishquiz.com. There's a whole lot to this publishing gig. It's not just writing the book and publishing. You have to plan your marketing. There's so much that you have to plan and build in advance. So go over there and find out, are you really ready? Or do you maybe need to hire a professional to guide you along the way? So today's guest is Christy Stansell. And Christy shares people's stories. She's an Emmy-nominated news producer and now content developer for a global life coaching institute. Christy earned her broadcast journalism degree cum laude from the University of Southern California, while also performing in Hollywood's Band, which we're going to talk about today. Published in the paper at 10 and featured on as a television sports anchor challenge at 12, Christy delivered her first live news report at 16. After 14 years of reporting, anchoring, and producing news in the markets in LA to DC, Christy landed in Idaho to publish magazine articles, lead workshops for small business networks, and be twice named Woman of the Year. Christy now writes from home with 3 dogs underfoot, one of them 17 years old, we just discussed that, and a husband in the kitchen and 1 daughter upstairs and the other at USC. So welcome, Christy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here.
I want to know, how do you get that husband in the kitchen thing?
Well, it was, the necessity is the mother of invention. He kind of had to if he wanted to eat. So.
Okay. Yeah, mine would have to cook too, because I'm like a 3-meal trick pony. That's it.
Sweetheart, because I cook, he'll clean up. So either way, it works out well. He'll have to cook for the kids and himself if he wants to eat. Otherwise, I cook and he'll clean. So it works out well.
Okay. All right. Good deal. Good deal. So you came to me at the last minute. Like, this book has been really a rush to get out. And so tell us a little bit about the book, what inspired it, and what's going to happen with it. Let's discuss all of it.
Yeah, so it's really kind of one of those interesting woo things that happened, because 4 years ago, I was having a birthday party for my daughter. She was turning 10, and she had a rainbows and unicorns theme, because I've always gone out for the girls for their birthday parties. We have a fun theme, and they invite all their friends. And so after the party was over, sat down, I was relaxing, and I, as a good mom does, you always post the pictures on Facebook these days, right? So I posted the pictures, and an old friend of mine from college happened to see them, and she messaged me, and we hadn't talked in like 20 years, literally. You're, Facebook friends, and you like and wow. And she messaged, "Oh, those pictures are so great. Reminds me of a favorite song of mine." And so we chatted for a little bit, and come to find out that her son was also in the band at that time and was coming back after a really brutal loss to another school that we won't name names, but he was flying back. And so we just got to talking. I said, "Man, so what in the world, has that band director retired yet? Shouldn't he be retiring? He was old when we were in school." And we laughed, and she said, "He's supposed to in about 2020. And I said, "Great. Has anybody written his biography? Because what a story that man has." And she goes, "Oh, Christy." I'm like, "I know." As soon as I said it, I knew that I had to write this book. It was one of those like, oh, what am I getting myself into? So that was 4 years ago on my daughter's birthday. And the awesome thing is that after all this time and a roller coaster and all kinds of obstacles and all kinds of things, it's going to be, actually, the release date is her 14th birthday, which is pretty awesome. So basically it's called Drive It, Life Lessons from Hollywood's Band. And Drive It is a phrase that the band director at the University of Southern California Trojan Marching Band, he would say, drive it when you're on the field practicing, because how you practice is how you perform. And so Drive It is it's not just a marching style, it's an emotion and a passion for what you're doing and driving it down the field. So that's where the concept came from. And it's his life story and the history of the band all woven together with life lessons that he's learned over 50 years. He was 50 years in the industry at USC and 80 years old when he finally retired in 2020. So that's kind of where it all came from.
Wow. Wow. So I would assume when you say, I have to write this story, you had to go get him on board. You have to get Dr. Bartner on board to write this book.
Yeah, that's kind of important since it's about him. That was an important part of the deal.
Yeah.
So fortunately, because I was in the band and this is, just a couple of years ago. And I had some friends who were still connected with the band. So I reached out to them and I said, hey, I got this idea. How do I get in touch with him? What's the process? And so my friend happened to be the alumni director at the band at the time. And so she put me in contact with him and I flew down to California because I'm in Idaho now. And I flew down to LA and it was going to be band camp, I think was going on. And so I just went to meet with him and I proposed my idea. First, actually, I guess I sent him an email and kind of an outline of what I was thinking. Because as soon as I got the idea, all of these ideas are flooding and I'm brainstorming just all these things that I could include. And he's really a remarkable person and a really incredible story with all that he's developed and built with television shows and movies and world travel and Olympics and world expos. And I mean, it's on and on. And so all these ideas, and I go down and I share it with him. And he'd actually been approached multiple times with somebody wanting to write a book about him and the band. And he's like, no. And so I was the first person. Then he finally said, you know what? I feel good about this. Yeah, let's do this. So yeah, we just made an agreement and then it began. I started researching and I would get on the phone with him pretty much once a week. I would research and write, I get a chapter done, send it to him. He'd read it. He'd call me and we'd have, a couple hours of feedback. Oh, this is what really happened. And this is the story. And this is some background. And I learned some amazing things about what a really generous person he truly is. He's kind of rough and gruff on the outside, but inside he's a genuinely caring person who always had the best interests of the students at heart.
There you go. He's like a peanut M&M. No.
Yeah, exactly. My husband said that same thing the other day.
So you were writing along. I know this was a journey for you. And you guys, I want you to hear this because somebody said the most remarkable thing to me the other day about this is my plan. And if I run into obstacles, I'll know it wasn't meant to be. And I was like, whoa, stop. You cannot put that into the universe or it'll never happen. So, we had this big, long discussion about if you run into obstacles, you will figure out what the proper path is to get around those obstacles. So now I've got somebody back on the right path, but you ran into some obstacles that were pretty substantial.
Yeah, there've been more than one. Originally, my intention was to go the traditional publishing route and do the whole querying, route and get an agent and all that, which was pretty incredible because I knew that this was a fast track project from the very beginning because when the idea came to me, it was 2 years until his retirement. So that basically gave me 2 years to get an agent, write the book and get it published. And in nonfiction, you're not supposed to write the book until you have a publisher, which, seemed kind of backwards, but you write a book proposal. So I'd written a book proposal, I'd done the querying, and after it was fewer than 10 queries, I got an agent, which was pretty amazing. They called me 15 minutes after I sent the email on a Saturday at noon. It was mind blowing, super excited. Awesome. Let's get this going. He already had a publisher in mind. And he's like, so you just start writing the book. I'm like, but am I supposed to work with the pub? Okay, I'll just write the book. So I started writing the book. And that's when Dr. Bartner and I we got into our routine. And then time goes by and unfortunately the agent just was not doing the thing. And I would reach out and there was no response and I'd reach out and there was no response. And finally, come to find out, he's actually very ill. He had some health issues. So we parted ways. And so now this leaves me, I'm like, okay, I've got like a year left. And the reason was, it was, in target for the Dr. Bartner's retirement. He was going to be retiring in 2020. And we wanted to have that be the book launch with the most opportune time to reach the most people, and a news peg and all that. After 50 years, this guy's finally retiring. What a great news peg. And so wound up working with the publisher, and we're like, you know what, we're just going to get this done. Well, let's just do this. And then this thing called a pandemic happened. And so, finding resources and things to make it happen, it just kind of all fell apart, which is such a bummer, because here I have this great book written and nowhere to go with it, because the band wasn't able to perform. So there was no, resources there for them. And I had no promotion plan. I'm like, I can't promote and sell a book when there's nothing going on. I mean, I could have done some things on social media, but this is the kind of story that really needs to be in front of people live, and where the band is active, because that's where you get the most intensity and most emotion, and, potentially the most sales, which is, always helpful. So it kind of stalled. And then now that the pandemic's through and campus reopened, my daughter's actually at USC. I drove down to move her into her apartment. And while I'm down there, I'm like, you know what, by golly, this thing's going to happen. So I literally made a decision at the beginning of September, and here we are, 6 weeks later, and it's done.
But I have to throw a disclaimer in here. We usually don't do books in 6 weeks. So don't go out and think, I heard this interview and she can do a book. No,
I don't recommend it. I do not recommend it.
We need 3 or 4 months, please.
Yes. Longer, much longer. You really you do want it to be longer, because it was exhausting. It's very stressful, and it has been lack of sleep. That's why my husband's in the kitchen, because I haven't been there. I've like literally been at this desk, because I work full time as well. So I do my day job, and then early in the morning and late at night, kind of when I was writing it way back when, I have not left this desk, and slept very little. But that's like you were talking about it. Like, if you have obstacles and you want something done, you find a way around it. I could have said, oh, well, I work full time. There's no way I'm going to get this done. So why even bother? No. If you have passion for what it is that you want to do, you can get it done. You might have to make some sacrifices, like sleep and eating on a regular basis, but it's important. And I'm like, I am going to get this done. And it feels really good to have it done. But yeah, I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So, you know what? This is a good time. You guys, I'm going to teach you something here today that hopefully you'll understand. And Christy's the greatest, like we got through this. This is self-publishing. So when you get the manuscript back from the formatter, you have to go through it line item by line item and make sure it's okay. This isn't traditional. So we had several go back and forth, and because this has images in it, there were captions, and I have to tell you, even I was working weekends back there. She caught me between golf games. I'm sure it was very frustrating for me to say, I'll be home in 4 hours to help you. But we worked like an entire weekend going back and forth with the cover, going back and forth. And we can't do that cover work until the manuscript is complete, because we need actual spine. There's a lot that needs to be done here. So I just want to speak to that, because I know that's the frustrating part, where everybody hates their self-publisher. Like, really? But as the publisher, because it's a self, I'm hands off. I ferry the work back and forth for you, but I don't check it. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because I know you were like, it's Saturday at 6 o'clock. My family needs to be fed, and you need this like by 9.
Well, and again, it's one of those things, is how committed are you? And, what kind of product do you want to put out there? And there were a couple of times I'm like, okay, maybe I can let this part slide. But I knew that inside me, if I let there are 3 little things. I'm like, if I don't get those fixed, they're going to bug me. And I can't have that out there. And I felt bad. I'm like, the designer was doing a great job. I mean, and it was interesting, because we had a conversation about some of the limitations on the programming that allows you to do certain things and not do other things, which I didn't really understand, because I've never put it into that program. So making one change changed a bunch of other things that I didn't expect to have changed. I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't want that. I want this, but I wanted it just a little this way. And so, once I had the understanding of how little changes can impact the rest of it, I got it a lot better. But she was great. And we went back and forth and fixed those little things, because ultimately, I mean, this is what's going out into the world. And I love it now. I mean, I really, really do love it. Like the designer, we found a really fun way to capture, I don't know if you can see that in there, but there's a photo right there that is kind of the highlight of the high note, which is the life lesson for each chapter. And it's just this little touch that I absolutely love, but we wouldn't have had that if we hadn't had the back and forth. So, it can be frustrating and annoying. It's like, oh my gosh, seriously?
I think this is one of the lessons, though. I had someone about this time last year who was very frustrated with the process and why can't I speak to the designer? And the reason most of the time, you were a huge exception. Remember when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, I made the hugest mistake letting you talk to the designer. Publishing has a whole language of its own. And when you communicate what you think you want that change to be, they're hearing something else because of that nature. So that's why in self-publishing, a lot of times we don't let you communicate with the designer, because we're not all speaking the same language.
And that would be helpful too, is to be able to speak that same language. And once we were, then it was a whole lot easier. So I don't know what there is to be able to learn that earlier on, but that was definitely helpful when we figured that out. So, and the finished product, like I said, is great. And I couldn't be happier.
Well, good. So we did this for homecoming. We're actually recording this on the 18th of October. It's going to be released for sale tomorrow. It's already gone to #1 in pre-sale. And you guys, she has done an amazing, she's a part of a lot of USC groups on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Are you on Instagram as well?
Sort of. I am. I haven't posted in a while.
I gave up on social media a long time ago, but but she's in groups in all those places. So, and they're band groups and they're alumni groups. So she's been able to really effectively promote this, which is rare. I mean, she's a rare person who came with an audience already with self-publishing. So this did work out really well. So if we want to find the book, this is going to come out on the November 2nd, right after homecoming, which your homecoming is October 30th, correct? 2021.
Yes. So your podcast is on November 2nd. And then the book launches in Kindle on the 19th, and then in paperback on the 26th. Homecoming is the 30th. We have some events leading right up to that with a jock rally and a bunch of band rehearsal. It's actually a huge alumni event. There's going to be almost 900 band alumni. Anybody who's ever been in the band over the last 50 years is coming back to honor Dr. Bartner and finally be able to, pay tribute to him for all of his dedication over, 5 decades. So it's going to be a really fun thing. So, but of course, people that are there can come and get an autograph.
Right. They can get we want to mention too, part of the proceeds for this are going to the USC marching band. So it's not as if you're just supporting Christy on this. She wrote the whole thing that was part of her agreement with Dr. Bartner, that part of these proceeds would go to the USC marching band. So where do we find this book? If we want to find it.
Yeah, hollywoodsband.com. So it's HOLLYWOODSBAND.com, no apostrophe, just hollywoodsband.com. And there's some fun little captions in there about little segments pulled out of the book, which kind of little teasers about some really great stories that he shared over his 50 years.
That is so cool. So the reason we're telling you where to go get it, because you're thinking, well, I'm not a USC alumni, or, I'm not going to be a guest at this event. If you're a high school band director, or and you're the mother of the trumpet player, the 6th grade trumpet player, trying to encourage, this book is really inspirational about, keeping your kid going in the musical world. So Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, I was going to say, add as well, there's world travel in there. There's all kinds of football stories too, and coaches and players and famous, Heisman Trophy winners. I mean, it spans the full array. So you just think of a marching band in a football stadium and all the people that are involved there. There's that. He was also director of the Disneyland band for 28 years. There's something in here for everyone. It's a pretty awesome story.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing this with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And thank you again for all of your support in getting this thing done and driving it to the end zone. The last
driving
minute.
it. That's what we did. We drove it to the end zone.
Driving fight on.